watu wa bishale bundi posto wako lipe pwani pite mwana ani bit mane ku mayaka ukata ukosu mtume kutu wa mwana muda buena kupata kuna ame idea wazisi hagezaniwa moni upete anu imuoni mem ushale kupeta kuamu ishale meu pentu mimi wetu wata bigibu. Est-ce que itu ya kalua le bilwende watu wa hajale wakana ushama kupenda na kuamu ishale manu mayaka ukata.
Hey guys, we're back.
Yes, we're here with Asia Mujinga Sherrard, and
Nice
she's
to see
the
you.
artist of that awesome video that you guys just saw. And so what is your art show called?
It was called Is Repair.
Okay.
And Is Repair was the title of that piece you saw with all of the tiles and with the washing, and it became the title of the show as well.
Awesome. And so what can you tell us about your art show? What's it about?
So this show is about grief, and it's about loss and grieving. It started off as a sort of narrative piece. I realized while I was grieving the loss of my father this past year that I was in this habit of washing. I was sort of compulsively doing dishes. And there was something about that act of washing that for me felt like a small act of repair, taking something that had been dirtied or confused and turning it into something that is whole and usable and available for new use. And I realized that one of the reasons I was compulsively doing dishes is that I was really looking for ways to repair the sorrow there in some small metaphoric way. There's obviously a lot of links to washing and caregiving, and you can find references to that kind of across our culture. But one of the fun things I found is that while I was washing for my own sake, I was making room for other people to contribute their own sorrows too. I was doing dishes after feeding my friends, and out of my own lack of capacity, people kept showing up and asking me for advice and talking to me about their feelings, and somehow in my process of grief, I was a resource to other people and their sorrows. And so the piece became about that, about making room in your own grieving process for other people to heal too.
Usually when you think of something that you're washing, you think of something you're washing away something.
Yeah.
So from what you're telling me, from you washing dishes to find a way to reconnect with, like
The wholeness and the purityness of like a clean slate, I guess.
Yeah, it was about making room, and it was about a clean slate, but it was also just about the action. It was about that ritual of being in a sort of state of continuous repair, and it was what I needed, I think.
Very interesting. And so when I saw your art show, I guess the thing that stuck out to me the most was the Tropic of Cancer book.
Yes, yeah.
And then the mirror with all the words on it. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So that's the other piece, and it's sort of a companion piece to the washing. The fun thing about it, I'm not sure if you noticed, is that while I'm performing the piece, I'm reflected in the mirror, so it sort of links them visually. But it's also a very different piece, so it sort of creates a counterbalance. If the washing piece allows you to sort of process things by cleaning them and allows grief to be something that sort of dissolves and transforms, the Miller piece is really talking about how stubborn certain threads are. And it is, you probably have seen the image, it's every page from Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer with the misogynistic language cut out and then resin cast into a mirror. The mirror is sort of an interesting object. My father found it on the side of the street in Brooklyn once, brought it home, painted it that kind of fake stone color, and then it's been part of our household for about 10 years. And I used that mirror because I was really talking about my father's attachment to Miller. It wasn't something that dragged his entire life, but in his 20s it was huge. He had Miller's face painted on the back of his jacket, he had Miller's book rammed into his pocket, and his journals sounded like Miller. He was emulating Miller's language and Miller's point of view. And so while I was mourning my father, I was looking for him, and looking for him through his library and the names that he kept mentioning. So I went and picked up Tropic of Cancer as a way to sort of reach back and get that lost connection with my father, read the books that we would have been reading together, discussing if we'd had more time. And what hit me was the misogyny, and it was really, I knew it would be there, but it was really hard to get through.
But it was. You kind of like viewed your father in a whole different light. Because, you know, I feel like we see our parents as like these like beings that are on such levels that have so much influence on us, and we see them as so like, you know, held in such high regard. So as we get older, we start to see their flaws, and it's just like, oh wait, you're like maybe a little racist, or you're a little sexist, or misogynistic, and you know, it's hard to take in.
It is. I mean, I got really lucky with my father, as he had a really crass sense of humor, and I got to know him really well before he was gone. I helped clean out part of his studio, and I realized, you know, this is the moment children are afraid of, as you walk into someone's private space, a space that wasn't part of you, and you find these awful secrets. And I didn't. Everything that was there, you know, the cigarette butt and whatever, they were all things I knew about. They were all parts he had already shared with me. But this was a level of intensity that was disruptive. And I think it became symbolic, and the reason I made work from it, merging Miller's language with my father's handwriting from his journals in this mirror, is because I think it was a little larger than me. It wasn't just about me reconciling how can somebody who admires Miller have a daughter. How can somebody who admires and replicates this language then have a relationship with his girl child? It was also about how deeply entrenched conversations about gender are in foundational relationships. Is unlike race, which is usually outside of the home, gender politics really, they're pre-conscious. They're the earliest relationships we have, and I think that's why it's so often so difficult to talk about, is that there's a level of intimacy to gender politics. So I was talking about my relationship with my father, but I think I made available a conversation about how primary some of these conversations we have are, and why it's such a difficult political ground.
And you also invited other people to do some writings and post on your walls to write.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So that's going back to the Is Repair piece. It was definitely an open cycle. And like I talked about, my gestures of self-repair also made room for others. And so this was a live collaborative performance. I would go into the gallery for an hour every day that the gallery was open and wash tiles. And then I'd put the clean ones on the other side of the wall, and people would take those clean ones and write new narratives on them and put them back. The narratives were anonymous. I mean, people could sign them if they wanted to, but there was sort of an anonymity of participating. And unless someone had told me the story before or specifically indicated which tile was theirs, I had no ability to connect it to the person. And I had a very specific role, which is I take this sorrow and I absorb it, and then I wash it. And I make room for somebody else to process that. And I think it was about an absolution and a repair, but it was also about creating room. And I think really not only using my own process of mourning to open space for others, but also using that process of mourning to open new spaces. Yes, this has hurt you, this is sorrowful, and now I can allow somebody else to use that same experience to heal. And it kind of kept that open.
I love that. And then can you tell us about your one last piece, the huge piece of the huge sheet that held all the names on it?
Oh yeah, that was sort of an interesting piece too. It's a live piece, so it's going to keep expanding. It's definitely sort of in transition now, and it's its earliest stage. But I realized I'm really interested in names and the object of a name, and how sort of simple it is and how much it unpacks. I was thinking about self and community and who you know and how you attach to those people, how isolated you can feel in grief, and how many people are part of your life. This is sort of a maturing of an older piece in which I printed a piece of fabric with the names of everyone I knew and who knew me, and sewed into a business suit. And there I was sort of poking fun at the idea that one can be self-made, right? So we have so many people who shape us, either moving us forward or holding us back, but everything that we do is really communal, more than individual, if you start thinking about the mass of people. And that was kind of a more pointed, almost more political statement. This was more emotional. That fabric existed, but it lacked something tangible. There wasn't enough time. Each name had been typed and printed rather than stitched. And so there's something about stitching and giving it that slow amount of time and really spending 20, 30 minutes with each name that was really appealing, and I wanted to think about names, and I wanted to think about communities, to think about knowing, and to think about connectivity, and really give it that sort of ritual of giving it body.
Awesome.
Well,
Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really exciting.
Yeah, it's been really inspiring. I mean, I just loved your show. It really
Thank you so
resonated
much.
with me, and so to hear about your process is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your show was at the Gallery of the Visual Arts.
It was at the Gallery of Visual Arts. It's coming down today, so just the timing was a little off. But I was really lucky to work with the Gallery of Visual Arts. They're great. Catherine Mallory's a genius. And I actually shared the gallery with Tressa Jones and Kate Lund, and their show was really exciting and really cohesive. If anybody got a chance to go, you'll probably find that there were visual elements that really drew you through the entire show. So I was lucky to share the space with them.
Where can people find information about you?
They can find information about me on my website, actually, because I'm a professional artist with a website. It's my full name.com. So that's AsiaMujingaSherrard.com. And I'm sure my name is
And
we'll have
a link in the description on our interview.
There we go, yeah, so I can
Yeah.
definitely do that. And, you know, obviously the School of Art has a little page on me, but my website's the best place to go in terms of figuring out what I've been doing, what I might do next. There's a news section. So if you're interested in seeing my art again, that's the best place to find out when it's showing.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Asia.
so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.